Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 46, which for this episode, I'm actually going to review a video that a lot of you have sent to me from Highland, Michigan. This is a ghost video of a child that's in a crib, and just beyond the crib, you see this ghostly figure go walking through the living room. Now, I've been asked to not only look at the video itself and tell you guys what I think, but I've also been asked how I would approach this case in general from an investigative standpoint, which I think is a great question because there's a lot of stuff here that you may or may not know that you should look out for when going into a case that has a child specifically. And when it comes to child cases, I take those cases very, very seriously. And I will explain why later. I mean, I know there's obvious reasons, but there's some not so obvious reasons that you may or may not think of or know about, which we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first, let's start with the actual video itself, which actually appeared in a news story. So this is all I have to reference, but we'll watch this right now and we'll go from there. Here we go.
A haunted house in Highland. One family says the spooky image was captured on a baby monitor. And when the parents checked on their little girl, they say she had been scratched. 7 Action News reporter Kim Russell standing by to let us know what happened.
Take a look at this video recorded on a baby camera. 15-month-old Lily is in her bed when something moves in front of her. Heather Bro and Josh Higgins told 7 Action News when they checked on the baby, she had a scratch on her face. Heather believes a ghost has harmed them both.
It was chilling. It was literally a chill down your spine. Like that what if factor. Like, is this what I just saw?
It scares us that it could do something else. I mean, there was even a morning that I woke up and I had felt like something was around like someone's hands were around my neck.
This happened in the guest house they're staying in next to Josh's parents' home, which it turns out some believe is also haunted.
Okay, so that is the Highland, Michigan child crib ghost video that made its rounds on the web. You know, I was really surprised that so many people found this to be authentic because I do not, for a lot of reasons. But let's start with the physical movement of the alleged ghost. First off, it just looks like a person walking through this living room. I mean, if this ghost were in perfect focus and someone just walked through the living room, that's exactly what it would look like, meaning that the physics are correct. I mean, it does appear as though the ghost is moving kind of fast, so the video might be sped up a little bit, but the physics are all correct as far as a human being goes. And the reason that is a red flag to me is in the 2 times in my entire 25-year career that I've physically seen what I would refer to as a ghost, the number one thing about it in both cases is there's just something completely off with the physics. There is a fluidity that ghosts move with that is so abnormal, and you see that in Sir No Face as well. Whatever Craig filmed, whatever that entity is, it does not move like a human. And when I've seen ghosts, and again, I've only seen 2 in my entire 25 years of running around the world's most haunted places, the physics are just so smooth. The way an authentic spirit moves, there's just a fluidity that is just, it's hard to describe unless you see it, but it moves. I always say it moves like water. It just flows through the room. And this is, you know, this footage here just appears to be a person walking through the room. But let's get past the aspects of me just referencing what I've seen. Let's get into actual things that anybody could look at and discern from an authentic spirit versus a person. First off, you have to understand the way these night vision cameras work. They lose detail with distance, meaning if you had a CCTV camera or a night shot camera in your hand and you were standing 5 feet in front of a wall, a big giant wall, if you were standing 5 feet in front of that wall at 5 feet, it would look like a wall. At 10 feet, it would start to lose color and fade a little bit, but you'd still see that it's a wall. You know, at 20 feet, it would be really, really faint, but you could still barely make out that it's a wall. And eventually you would just get far enough where it would fall away and it would look like you were standing in darkness, right? The reason that is because there's only so much definition that these cameras can show you with the compression that they're using. So at a certain point, it will just start showing you like figures, not details, right? Okay, so what's going on here in this video is this person, I believe it is, that's walking, they're right at that edge. They're right at that edge of where the camera is trying to make out detail, but it can't due to the lack of light. So the compression just can't make out detail. So what you get is a form instead of crisp detail. Okay, now this video has also been played with, and what I mean by that is ghosts do not leave motion blurs. If you look right here, or I'm going to go back and forth with the video, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Do you see that? That is a motion blur. That is a filter that's used to make things look more fluid, right? When you're going to transition from one shot into another, you can use this. It just kind of blends the sequence. Or when you're overlaying footage, it also blends the footage together. So whoever shot this, whoever filmed it, they put a motion blur filter on it, and you can see it right here. Unless the ghost in question was an editor, this was done by a person. There's no question about this. Just so you guys know, there's no question. This is a motion blur filter. And the reason I believe they used the motion blur filter here is because if you look, there's this monitor over here, and it's kicking off a lot of light, okay? So the more light, the more detail, right? So they got to make that look more ghostly, so they put the motion blur filter on it. That's also why I believe the ghost just appears at the beginning of the video. We don't see any footage where the ghost walks into the frame, right? It just appears. That's where the edit is, right? That's where the edit is. Now, the reason the ghost disappears when it turns the corner once it gets across the room is because there's less light, and down that hallway, it's very dark. So when I referenced the wall earlier, right, how the further and further the wall gets, eventually it'll just disappear and it'll seem as though you're standing in a big black open room when you're not. It's just a wall at a distance. It's the same thing here. The ghost / person turns the corner and it's too dark. The compression and the CCTV light can't make out the image, and eventually it just disappears. So that's why they don't need the motion blur over there, because it'll just disappear, but they need it at the front of the frame because there's too much light and the body can be seen. So they're basically blurring out the ghost when it comes into frame, and they're just letting it dissipate after it walks across the room. And to back this up, if you look on the ceiling here, the ghost appears to be giving off a shadow. Now, the shadow towards the kitchen, as you can see, is darker. That's because the light is brighter over there. And for the same reason that the ghost dissipates as it goes down the hallway, the shadow also disappears as the ghost approaches the hallway. That's because there's less light over there. So the same effect that's going on with the ghost is going on with the shadow. And again, that just goes back to the primary light source on the right side of the room is this monitor. Now, when it comes to shadows, there are some that believe that it's impossible for a ghost to cast a shadow because a ghost does not have mass to it. And then there are others, like myself, that believe when a ghost fully manifests that there is a degree of mass to it, and it can cast shadows. And the reason I believe that is because of the laser light experiments conducted by Keith Age on the 4th floor of the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, in which Keith would stand on the 4th floor corridor, and he would shoot these laser lights down the corridor, and every now and then, a shadow person would clip that light. Not only have I seen this on video, but I've conducted this experiment myself and got the same results. But my issue with this shadow that we're looking at here is that we have multiple other red flags telling me that this ghost is a person. So I'm certain that we're looking at a person's shadow, not a ghost shadow. So when it comes to my overall video analysis, when I look at the way this thing moves, the physics of it, the motion blur filter, which I promise you that is in fact a motion blur filter. When I look at the way that the alleged ghost just appears on the right side of the screen and dissipates with light on the left side of the screen, when I look at the shadow movement, I am 100% certain this is fake. 100%. If I could be 101% certain, I would be 101% certain. It's most definitely fake. Now, when it comes to how would I approach this case as an investigator, after watching this entire news clip, there's a lot of things that are really concerning to me. And let me just precursor all this by saying, I don't know this family. I don't know anything about them. Everything that I'm going to say, like everything else in this podcast, is just my opinion. This story was on the news. I'm going to tell you guys how I would honestly approach this case after seeing this story. So we have the mother saying that the child's face has been scratched, in which she also says that she's been choked in the middle of the night. And you have the husband going, I don't know, what if? Well, knowing that the video is fake, and I know it's fake for a fact, that it's not a ghost. I'm telling you guys, it is not a ghost. Somebody faked this footage. Going into it, there's a few things that I would literally have them legally sign off on. One, they would have to take a lie detector test for me. I would have to know that they're being truthful. If they refuse to take a lie detector test, I would be done. I wouldn't do the case, because if I feel as though they're not being honest, then well, why am I even there? Secondly, I would want to know their medical history as far as what drugs are they taking, what are their prescriptions. I would also ask them both to take like a 30-panel drug test. I would want to know what's in their system. Are you guys, do you smoke weed? Do you do coke? Do you do methamphetamine? Like, what's in your system? And the reason I would want to know all this is because there's a child there. You have to eliminate all the potentials for bizarre behavior before you start saying something is a ghost, okay? They would have to let me know, and I would have to know, what drugs are you on? Now, again, I don't know these people specifically. I'm not saying they're on drugs at all. I don't know if they are. I'm saying that I would have to have a lie detector test. I would have to know for a fact what drugs they are on. I would have to also know their police records. Has there been any abuse? Has there been any abuse reported in the family? I would also want to know the child services record. Is there any history of the child being struck by either parent? Okay. Now, the reason I would, bring that up is an obvious one. You have a child with very visible marks on its face, and you have two parents that are saying a ghost did it, okay, and a fake video, right? So right away I'd be like, I need to know the history of child services. I need to know if anything's ever happened with this child or any other child. I would need to know this. So if they agreed to take a lie detector test and they took it and they passed it, if they were upfront about what they're taking as far as medications, and I knew that, if their record came back and they had no history of any kind of child abuse or physical endangerment or anything like that, then I would say, okay, let's move forward with an actual investigation. And I would do that only based off the fact that whenever you make paranormal claims, the first thing people want to do is say that you're crazy. So I don't want to be the voice that says I won't believe you. If they agreed to all of those things, did all of those things, even though I believe the video is fake, the mother is saying that she is being choked in her sleep. So at the very least, I would set up cameras in her room, in the living room, and I would monitor the sleep patterns. I would see what's happening at night. Is the husband choking her in his sleep? And do they spoon extra tight together? All of these things can happen where someone could feel like they're being attacked. But my biggest fear when I watched this video, when it was all said and done, my concern was battered housewife syndrome. Now, again, I don't know that this is the case at all. I know nothing about these people, so I don't want to just label them with this. But I've seen battered housewife syndrome up close, and I'll tell you the story in a second, and it is mind-blowing. But when I watch this video, what I see is a fake video and a mother saying she's being choked and her child is being scratched and a husband playing dumb. It almost seems like it's setting something up. Like the wife who's being beat is actually trying to protect the husband because the child has marks all over its face. I can only imagine that if this child went out into the world with all these marks on its face, that the communities are going to be going, hey, why does this child have all these marks on its face? If you look at this photo here, this looks like a handprint. This looks like a smack across the kid's face. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Again, I don't know these people, but I'm telling you, my gut instinct and reaction is that it looks like this kid took a walloping. And then this whole situation here, knowing that that video is fake, looks like, a protective story. The husband could say, look, I didn't choke anybody. I didn't hit my kid. It was a ghost. Look at this video that we have. And then the wife and mother says, a ghost is doing it. That's right. I'm being choked in my sleep and my child's being scratched or hit. And it's not my husband. It's a ghost. Look, we have footage. Here's the ghost. Here's the ghost that's hurting me. Here's the ghost that's hurting my child. It's not my husband. And you got the husband going, it's that what if factor. What if factor? Bro, either a ghost or a person is choking your wife and smacking your kid. Why are you sitting there so calm? I would be freaking out. I can tell you right now, if I ever saw a mark on Gracie, I would lose my mind. And this goes back to the battered wife syndrome. And I had never experienced this until I was 20 years old. If you don't know what battered wife syndrome is, it's when a wife is physically and emotionally abused and she wants to leave, but at the same time, she has this fear of separation. She has this fear that without this man who's abusing her, that she would be nothing. And she has this passionate love affair with him where her entire life is about pleasing him. So no matter what she does, he's going to keep abusing her, keep beating her, and mentally abusing her because it's this perpetual, circle of, trying to prove that you're worthy. Now, I had heard about this, but I had never experienced this until I was 20 years old. I was driving from Iowa State University to see Laura in college at Northern Iowa University. Between Ames, Iowa, and Cedar Falls, Iowa, where she's at, there's this small, tiny town, believe it or not, called Dyke, Iowa. And there's this gas station that's connected to a bar. Now, as you guys know, I've told you I hate violence, I hate fights, I hate all that stuff. And I've only, as an adult, and I mean past the age of like 24, I've only been in like 2 fights, and this is one of them. And I could have minded my own business. I could have just kept going on about my way, but I stopped to get gas, went inside, paid for the gas, and while I was inside paying for the gas, this fight broke out between this guy and his wife. And this guy was clearly drunk. I mean, drunk off his ass drunk. And the reason it really, really caught my eye is because as they were walking out, he grabbed her by the back of her, like her hair, like just below her neck, and just shoved her face down. And he was walking outside towards his truck, but he was holding her head down. So like she's bent over and he's just holding her head down on her waist, almost like she's a dog. And he's walking to his truck, which is actually parked on the south side of the building. So I'm like, Jesus, man. And look at the teller, and the teller's just like, yeah, just disturbing. I'm like, fuck, So I like pay for it, and I'm like, you're going to call the cops? And he was like, oh, they're local. They're going to go home, and he's going to beat the hell out of her. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm like, well, someone going to call the cops there? And he's like, well, they don't really have neighbors. They live a ways away. And I'm like, well, you should call the cops right now, man. And I'm like, Jesus. So I go outside. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get in my car and leave. And as I'm walking to my car, he's over by his pickup truck, and he is just smacking the shit out of this girl. Just backhanding her and front-handing her, and I mean, just smacking her. And he's got a hold of her hair in one hand so she can't get away. still like towards the back of her neck. And his other hand, he's just whacking her. And she's got her hands up trying to defend herself. And he is beating the piss out of her. And I basically just, I'm totally going to paraphrase. This was 20 some years ago. And I basically just yell at him and just say, stop. I'm like, dude, stop. And I walk over there. And again, he's so drunk, I can hardly make out what he's saying. He's slurring. You know, he's barely on his feet. She's drunk as can be too. And I'm just saying, like, dude, let her go. Stop it. Stop it. And he's telling me it's his girl. He'll do what I want. I ain't going to do shit and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, listen, I'm going to ask you one more time to stop it and let her go, or I'm going to call the cops. And he starts telling me I ain't going to do shit, blah, blah, blah. And he just starts beating the piss out of her in front of me as he's looking at me, like dead in my eyes. He's just whacking her as he's looking at me. And she's just got her arms up in defense. And I'm just like, oh my God. There's one thing I can't visually stomach. A woman being hit by a man. I just can't. It just, oh my God. And my father, thank God my father was such he's a man's man. And he taught me my whole life how that is so wrong. Even if a woman hits you, you don't hit a woman. Like, you know, that's not what a man does. A man is responsible with his strength. A man uses his strength and his aggressiveness only when he needs to defend something. And I just grew up with that really embedded, that, you know, men are protectors of women. And this was out of line. What this guy was doing was so brutal. And to be honest, I lost it. I lost it. The fact that he would not only do this, but the fact that he can feel like he would do whatever he wants to his dog. And I lost it. And I'm looking at my arms right now. It just gives me goosebumps because I hate violence. I just hate it. And I started hitting this guy, and I was hitting him with everything I had. It didn't take much to get him to the ground where I could really get on top of him and start going to work. And by the way, this was no incredible victory. This guy was probably in his late 40s, very, very overweight. Like I said, just so drunk and stumbling. It's not like I was some badass or something. But what I was is young, in shape, strong, and sober. So as I'm hitting this guy, just laying into him, and I'm starting to think in my head, okay, Chad, that's enough, because he's bloody, it's gnarly, I got his blood all over me. Suddenly, I start feeling just this crack on the back of my head, just thud, thud, and I look up, and it's the girl. It's the girl with two hands clenched, hitting me on the back of the head, telling me, stop, you're going to hurt him. And I am just going, hold on. I just walked over here and put my life in danger and attacked this man because he was beating you like a dog. And now that I have him on the ground, now that I've neutralized the situation, now that he is getting some of his medicine back, you're protecting him? You're attacking me? You're hitting me. And that was my first taste of battered wife syndrome. I was like, that is some shit. I literally stood up. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she's like, you're going to hurt him. You're going to hurt him. I'm like, have you seen yourself? Like, I'm helping you. You know, I'm like, I just told the guy inside to call the police. They're probably going to be here. Like, what is going on? Like, what? I just knew I needed to get out of Dodge because it just dawned on me, oh my God, this girl is going to say anything this guy tells her to say, and I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to go to jail for assaulting two people, they're probably going to say. So I hopped in my car and drove as fast as I possibly could to get to Laura. So I'll never forget Laura's face. She opened the door, and I was just covered in blood, and she was just like, what happened? Oh my God, where are you cut? I'm like, I'm fine. It's not my blood. It's not my blood. And I explained the whole story to Laura, and she was just like, what? Oh, Chad, no more fights, no more anything. And we just had this long talk because, You know, I helped this woman. I helped her. I put my own life in danger for her. And she was attacking me. And after watching this news story, honestly, that's what I thought about. I was like, man, I hope this is not a situation where this husband has these violent tendencies and they're making up some kind of story where a ghost is beating the kid, a ghost is choking the wife, and here we have proof of it. So, yeah, if I handled this case, it would be very difficult because they would have to agree to all those things. They would have to agree to turn over their medical records. They would have to agree to allow me to speak to child services. They would have to take a lie detector test. They would have to allow me to record for several days to see what goes on in their sleep, to see what happens around the house. And I would want a doctor to look at the child. I would want a doctor to look at the scratches and the bruises to determine if they were from a human hand or from something else. Because, man, as crazy as it sounds, this stuff happens all the time. I've seen this in at least 2 cases I know of, where a family basically manifested a story about a ghost hurting the child to cover up for the fact that the parent was hurting the child. This happens more than you would think. So that's my honest opinion on this footage, on this case, and how I would go about, approaching it. Thank you guys for submitting this to me. I'm sorry that it took me a while to get to it. Just there's a lot of ideas for episodes, and I'm all about reviewing footage, and so feel free to send more and more of those into me. If you guys enjoyed this episode, let me know in the comments, and I can do more footage review episodes. I enjoy looking at footage and trying to figure things out, and as you'll see, 99% of the time it can be figured out. If you're looking for authentic footage, there's not a ton out there. Like I said, I'm fixing to release the documentary 74 Minutes in August, and that's 74 minutes of footage that I've captured over 25 years of doing this. That's how much footage of authentic evidence I've captured. It's just very, very rare. So thank you guys for listening to episode number 46. Before I sign off, there's a few things that I want to say. First and foremost, we are having our first ever In a Crowded Room podcast event, October 19th in Santa Monica, California. Tickets are on sale right now from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's not only going to be a live recording of the In a Crowded Room podcast with a 30-person studio audience. We're also going to do UFO sky watching on the beach directly below where the Battle of Los Angeles happened. There's going to be a 2-hour meet and greet, Q&A sessions, gift giveaways, a whole evening filled with things to do. And tickets are limited to 30 people. I want to keep it nice and intimate. Again, that's October 19th in Santa Monica, California. Tickets are on sale at aghtelevision.com. I will put the link below in the description box. Also, for those asking about the t-shirts, first off, thank you guys for ordering the t-shirts. We had some orders come in right away, which is awesome. For those of you that were looking for the link, it's also in the description box below, which is where the donations tab is also located. Thank you guys for your support. You guys know it means the world to me. Thank you for listening to episode number 46. I will be back tomorrow with a special Sunday episode to make up for the Tuesday episode that I missed. Until then, my friends, much love and all the best.